Coffee's ready.
I must have got about 4 litres of oil out of that. Massive volume of oil. And apparently the smell was quite something in the areas as gently simmering livers were sort of deconstructed and the oil removed.
Excellent. So you appeared during one coffee morning and placed upon my desk this clear viscous fluid, and then ominously on top is "look but do not open." And this is of your own creation. This is of your own brewing process.
Yes.
What is it?
What is it? It's squalene oil.
From some of the deep sharks we've been processing.
Some of the deep sharks we've been processing. Material which is a bit too smashed up to warrant including in the collection of common material, common species. So,
or if we're skeletonizing.
Or if we're just removing the jaws or a section of skin, denticles, things like that. So it just seemed an awful waste to be throwing the rest of it out. And for a long time I've known about squalene. We used to have a policy under one of the former curators of removing the livers from Chondrichthyan fishes, and it made a hell of a mess. And it didn't actually leave a very good specimen because you had to then pack out the gut cavity with cloth to get that fullness.
Was it to stop all the oil coming out?
Yes,
preservative?
yeah.
Because some of the tanks have quite a layer, but it's not doing any harm.
It's not doing any harm.
It
actually seems to reduce alcohol loss, but when you're pulling specimens through it and you're handling it, everything's covered with this thick slick of oil. And every surface that it touches, and your hands, your gloves, all your instruments needs a good solid bath in degreasing to get rid of it. So I thought, well, there must be a use for this. I mean, it's been historically used by all kinds of cultures and people, maritime peoples, for centuries. We've known about it. So what I did was I extracted the liver, I put it into a cloth bag, mushed it a bit.
Mushing
is good. And then basically suspended it over a large container. And out flowed, like a river in some species, this oil, which is quite a variety of colours. And what you've got there is, it's mostly Aprosteurus, the deep water pentanchid shark. Other sharks, it's golden. There was one shark which we did, which was very badly beaten up, and I couldn't justify keeping it, so we removed the jaws, took all the critical measurements and things off, removed the liver, and the oil is sort of like
it's like a rust colour.
Rust colour. It was like a red ale.
Oh, right.
Deep red. Yeah, deep red.
That was the bramble shark.
Yeah, and I didn't know whether that was sort of, it had had such a bad time that it had started to hemorrhage into its liver, but I would have expected the blood to have settled out.
Yeah, whatever is in there is dissolved in the oil. So.
So maybe it is heme, who knows? But the reason why that ominous label is on the top is that, as well as the oils, you get quite a lot of aromatics, which can be
not like a lovely gin. It's shark aromatics.
It's a very unique, tangy, sharky smell.
Okay, so maybe we'll write it up like a gin description.
Yeah. Yes, but one of the interesting things is I first did this back in the 90s with a very large seal shark, Delacius licher, and this thing was about 1.8 metres long, about as big as they get. And
they're kind of a big cookie cutter, aren't they?
Yeah, the king of the cookie cutters.
Yeah.
Cookie cutter on steroids. And I must have got about 4 litres of oil out of that. Massive volume of oil. I've still got a good 2 litre bottle of it at home. But once I'd sort of left it covered with a tissue so you didn't get extraneous muck and insects going into it, the aromatics actually came off and were lost. And it has the very, very faintest whiff of shark, which I understand is TMAO.
And I guess the ammonia would all leave
ammonia,
as well. So.
Yeah, but it is the most amazing stuff. It doesn't go off. It doesn't oxidize in the way that other oils oxidize. And I've used it externally, put it on metalwork externally.
And it can make up, was it about a third of the shark's body weight?
Yeah.
And that it doesn't oxidize, that it doesn't break down, is a little bit of a clue to its function, because it's not an energy store.
No.
So even bacteria don't break this down, because it's not worth it. It takes more energy to digest it than it does to release.
It's the fish equivalent of eating celery.
Yes.
So I put it on metal outside, and it's stayed. It's prevented rust. There used to be a product you could get called Fishaline.
Fishaline, I was trying to remember the name.
It used to be sprayed particularly on the inside of boots of cars, which were notoriously bad for rusting up. Oh. And cars would absolutely honk because you'd applied it.
But they wouldn't be rusting.
They wouldn't be rusting. Yeah, you got to look after that asset. But the other bit of social information around this for the Wellington area is that down on Island Bay there's a large fishing community comprising Shetland Islanders, Greeks and Italians. And they used to take boats out and cook straight, and they'd be mostly targeting hapukura and bass, what some of your listeners would call wreckfish. But they'd also get a large bycatch of quite large sharks. And they would boil the livers down. They had big whaling pots to boil the livers down to extract the oil, because this was money to them. And apparently the smell was quite something in the area as gently simmering livers were sort of deconstructed and the oil removed.
It was used in woodworking as well sometimes, isn't
it? Until the advent of, I guess, a petrochemical industry, this was
it's like whale oil. We didn't have a way of getting these kind of petrochemical these oils.
They say whale oil sort of was one of the big drivers of the Industrial Revolution in the UK. That and coal. It's
wild. Before we found oil, we were running things on whale juice. And this is similar to that. And it's that we touched upon, that it's not an energy store. This is buoyancy for these sharks, isn't it?
Yes. So they so it's because it's a fluid. It is, to all intents and purposes, non-compressible. So it gives them that sort of margin for going deeper. You don't have to worry about venting excess gas if you come up fast, or problems with compression if you go down fast. There are other issues they have to probably deal with, such as any gas dissolved in the blood.
Yeah, it's not as adjustable as a swim bladder, but it's also a little bit more foolproof. It can't go explosively wrong.
And it seems to be a thing of chondrichthyans. You don't see it being repeated so much in other groups. I mean, I can remember getting cod liver oil as a kid, and I don't know what it came from, to be quite honest.
But it's branded out.
But I bet you bottom dollar it sure as hell wasn't cod.
And it's probably an energy store in the cod, isn't it?
Yeah. As much as it doesn't seem, it didn't seem to sort of be the same purpose.
But we see a lot of their relatives. We see a lot of the grenadiers. They have that huge energy store liver because they've got a swim bladder as well.
And often they'll invert on the way up. That's when
it can go wrong.
That's when it goes badly wrong, and as a scientific specimen, that's where our tool, the Gut Stuffer 2000, comes into play.
Somebody's got to stuff those guts back in.
Yeah, I know. And if anyone wants to know about those, they can read our blog on
our
website.
We've got a blog link. To the Gut Stuffer.
So, I'm more than happy to sort of have this bottle taking up space in my garage, because when you want something that this is really good at, there's nothing else can really take its place.
Yeah, it's really fine. It really penetrates. It doesn't break down. It doesn't oxidize. It doesn't tend to wash off.
It's not acidic. Or it doesn't appear to be acidic. I haven't seen any acid effects on any metal I've applied it to. It's got an interesting feel when you touch it. It sort of feels warm.
Oh, weird.
To the touch.
Like it's insulating.
Well, I don't know. It might be reacting with some of the fats in my hand. I don't know. It just feels warm and very light. Some of the lubricants I use, one in particular, Inox, is my favourite sort of non-shark lubricant, and that you get that on your hand, and it feels like I've got oil on my hands. But with shark liver oil, it actually feels quite different.
Oh, okay.
It feels perhaps reaching back to a distant ancestor, and that's all.
Oh, familiarity.
Yeah, I remember familiarity. Yes, back when we were all chondrichthyans.
Oh, thank you. Happy coffee morning.
Yeah.